Welcome back to Watch the Bookerman and to episode number 62 of Paul Heyman's TNA. Last week was a huge week, the start of the second year of the save. We begin with the New Age stud in an unknown location. It was a great week for them last week, and Jimmy Jacobs wants to recap that and just let viewers in on what's been going on, and he asks, "Are you listening? Do you understand?" Footage then fades in from the conclusion of last week's show as the New Age interrupted the World Heavyweight Championship main event of New Year's Impact and attacked both Bobby Lashley, the challenger, and the champion Kurt Angle. During the attack, the arm of Bobby Lashley was seriously injured and the World Heavyweight Championship match was thrown out. Jacobs responds to the outrage and backlash to their actions, saying that they're just doing what Paul Heyman set out to do 1 year ago when he came to TNA, but where Paul Heyman failed in removing those final relics of the past, they will succeed. Because they aren't just talking about change, they are actioning their project by force for the better of the future of this company. Jacobs then speaks about Tyler Black's victory on the debut of TNA Evolve on MTV, with footage then shown of him becoming the number one contender with an opportunistic victory over Samoa Joe in a match that also featured AJ Styles and Bryan Danielson. At Genesis, all three men will be clad in gold. According to Jimmy Jacobs, the Kings of Wrestling will face Motor City Machine Guns and Tyler Black will face Kurt Angle. And he asks once again, "Are you listening? And do you understand?" So the opening segment is just a little recap of what went down last week, but through the lens of Jimmy Jacobs. And while it does lose heat to the storyline, we are seeing some progress with the ratings that the New Age can get on their own. Roderick Strong is somebody else who had a fantastic week, and he picks up another victory, his first match as the X Division champion, albeit this is a non-title match which he wins in 4 minutes and 40 with a Gibson driver over Kiyoshi. They don't click, and it did cool the crowd a little. I had hoped this would be quite a bit better than that, to be fair. Not going to worry too much, as it is just another dominant, decisive win for Roderick Strong. He then takes a microphone following his victory. We had to hear from this man after the week he had. He's handed the X Division title by the referee, and he puts over that last week and invites his Team USA partners into the ring. Unlike Strong, Nick and Matt Jackson are still wearing their gold medals from when they won the World X Cup. He speaks briefly about the New Age, but says that he trusts Motor City Machine Guns and Kurt Angle to get the job done at Genesis. He's sure that they'll retain their titles, and he's just as confident that he can retain his. Once he says this, Nick asks him if he can have the microphone and say something, and he congratulates the captain on his win last Saturday and tonight, but questions how Strong got that title shot. Matt adds that JB said last week that that match was given to him as a result of him leading Team USA to the win in the World X Cup, but Strong himself said that Nick and Matt had just as much to do with that win as him. So Genesis, his first title defense, they're implying or indicating that they feel they should get a title shot. Roderick Strong gets what they're saying, and he says he stands by what he said. They were just as big of a part of Team USA winning the World X Cup. He thinks it's a great idea. He's going to put it to Paul Heyman. Roderick Strong versus Matt Jackson versus Nick Jackson in a 3-way at Genesis. The perfect way to celebrate Team USA and the perfect way to showcase the X Division. And he's more than happy to share the ring with Nick and Matt Jackson. We then return from the break and Kurt Angle makes his way down to the ring. A really good segment as usual. He's clearly furious about what happened last week. He takes a moment to compose himself before demanding that Tyler Black and the New Age come down to the ring. They were running their mouths earlier from a safe space in the back, but he wants him face to face right now. Instead of Tyler Black, Mr. Anderson walks out protesting that there's been another number one contender been named before anything has been done about him being screwed at Final Resolution. Kurt Angle makes it clear, like he always does, he still doesn't make the matches in TNA, so this isn't an issue to take up with him. The two go at each other's throats, and the person who should be sorting this out then comes out. Paul Heyman says that he has an idea. Tonight in the main event, Kurt Angle and Mr. Anderson will team up. He feels that time heals all wounds, and he hopes they can get along better than they did last time they teamed up. If they can, and they win, Mr. Anderson will be added to the main event of Genesis, making it a three-way. Kurt Angle wonders what's in it for him, who are they going to face tonight, and why should he try and form a cohesive team with Mr. Anderson? And Heyman says it's pretty simple. He gets his chance to get his hands on the men who attacked him during last week's main event, Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli, the Kings of Wrestling, versus Kurt Angle and Mr. Anderson later tonight. So two very different motivations for Kurt Angle and Mr. Anderson, but they're going to have to pretty quickly get on the same page if they want to stand any chance of beating the Kings of Wrestling. We then get an interview with Sara Del Rey, who speaks about her successful Knockouts Championship defense last week. She says that she's proved herself right once again as she decisively defeated Sarita. The Queen of Wrestling wants to know who they'll build up next, only to have them knocked down once again. She's ready for whatever they bring, whoever they bring at Genesis, but vows that the result will be exactly the same. JB does also ask her about Mickie James and the interaction between them last week, but Del Rey says that it has nothing to do with her. Mickie James is a tag team champion, while she is the one true champion in this Knockouts division. We then get a match featuring Mickie James and Daisy Hayes, and following a poor opener, this isn't much better. Mickie James head and shoulders above, and to be fair, a new debutante and two not very experienced wrestlers, I shouldn't be surprised here. Mickie James does get the win, pinning Lacey Von Erich with a roundhouse kick, and Mickie was clearly sufficiently impressed with Daisy Hayes' performance on episode 1 of TNA Evolved that she has teamed with her tonight, and it's just a very, very straightforward squash win, but it gives the new signing Daisy Hayes a solid win this early into her TNA career. Mickie James then raises the arm of Daisy Hayes in the ring following their victory before Alyssa Flash and Mischief make their way down to the ring. The New Age members try to come between Daisy Hayes and Mickie, but Mickey's trying to stop them getting to the newcomer. Hayes steps in and tells Mickie she's fine, she can deal with these two, and she actually leaves the ring with Alyssa Flash and Mischief. It seems like this is kind of a recruitment move from the New Age, but Daisy Hayes assures Mickie James that she's just going to speak to him and sort of fob them off kind of thing. Mickie is nonetheless surprised by Daisy, Flash and Mischief leaving together, but she doesn't get much time to process that as she is jumped from behind by Sara Del Rey. The attack is, as to be expected, quick and precise, with Sara Del Rey standing over Mickie James and raising the Knockouts Championship over her, a symbolic message after what happened last week, and Del Rey's making it clear that she does not consider Mickie to be a viable challenger to her Knockouts Championship. That's actually a decently rated segment, happy with that as it advances the New Age Knockout storyline. In the back we then see Matt Morgan, and he seems to have cornered Maria Kanellis. There's no Jay Lethal around, so he's obviously waited for her, and he appears to be trying to chat up the woman who accepted Lethal's marriage proposal last week. Maria looks disinterested and really doesn't want to be there, but as Morgan continues, Madison Rayne walks up behind him. Rayne listens as Morgan suggests that Maria calls off the wedding and have some fun with him before tapping Morgan on the back. Morgan turns around, realises that he's dropped himself in it really, and he is slapped in the face by Madison Rayne. As Rayne storms off, Morgan turns back to Maria and she slaps him in the face as well. Both women leave and Matt Morgan is left with a sore face and no girlfriend. We then come back to ringside with Mauro and Taz turning attention to Christopher Daniels' announcement from last week. It seemed like he was going to retire before he welcomed Kazarian and Beer Money back into the fold. They'd not been seen for quite some time either, and they formed the forefathers of TNA Wrestling. Footage is then played from that segment. As I said, Daniels making it look like he was going to leave TNA before revealing the new group and signing a contract with TNA. Paul Heyman had made that offer, but it seemed like Daniels wasn't going to accept it. But at the last minute, he changed his mind, and up next, Beer Money will compete in their first match since Turning Point 2010 against Brian Kendrick and Paul London, their first match as members of this Forefathers group, and they pick up the victory in 30 minutes and 48. It's an okay match, 63. You'd hope that after a year, these teams would be getting better performances, but Beer Money have been away for some time, and we probably should maybe try giving them new gimmicks or something just to freshen them up, especially with them now being part of this group. They are the better performers of the two teams here, but everyone around similar ratings. I forgot to mention during the match, but Christopher Daniels was on commentary for the match, while Frankie Kazarian was stood at ringside with Storm and Rude. Bryan Danielson was at ringside with London and Kendrick, but nobody really got involved because whenever Kazarian would try something, Danielson was quickly there to run him off. And as Beer Money and Frankie Kazarian head up the ramp celebrating, of course they're joined by Daniels as he leaves the commentary position. Bryan Danielson enters the ring, checks on Brian Kendrick and Paul London, who are obviously not happy, and Daniels informs them and the viewers that they'll see the Forefathers again later tonight as they appear as the special guests of Angelina Love and Velvet Sky on the Beautiful People show. Daniels promises exclusive details on the formation of the group and says that nobody is going to want to miss what he has to say tonight. Returning to the second hour of the show, we see AJ Styles entering the office of Paul Heyman, and he's asking him where he's been all night, so it's clear that AJ has been looking for Heyman but hasn't been able to find him until now. Heyman looks to make excuses for where he's been, but AJ doesn't want to hear it. He says that he listened to what Jimmy Jacobs had to say at the open of the show, and he might be paranoid, but he wants Paul Heyman to tell him the truth. If it's the only time he does that in his life, AJ deserves honesty. He asks Paul if it was him who brought the New Age to TNA. Are they here to do his bidding? Obviously AJ has heard Jimmy Jacobs saying that they came in and did what Paul Heyman wasn't able to do, and AJ kind of linking the two together, thinking, is Paul Heyman behind this group trying to change TNA by force? Paul Heyman is quite taken aback by the accusation, but quickly denies it. He says he has absolutely nothing to do with the New Age. Sure, he brought Jimmy Jacobs into the company this time last year on the recommendation of somebody he trusts, and he allowed Jimmy Jacobs to form his own group, but what's followed, Paul Heyman had no idea. He hopes that AJ Styles isn't seriously suggesting that Heyman would try and sabotage his own company. AJ remains skeptical and makes it clear that he simply does not trust Paul Heyman. We then go into the fourth match of the night, and it is Generation Me of Team USA defeating formerly of Team Canada Sean Spears and Tyson Dukes, who are joined at ringside by Scott D'Amore, the former coach of Team Canada. It's just a follow-up from what happened on Explosion when Team Canada tried to cheat to beat Team USA. A good performance from Matt Jackson. Nick Jackson also doing okay. Dux and Sean Spears not bad actually, and I just had this work the crowd a little bit as we go into some other matches that hopefully can hit higher ratings, but a solid match as Nick and Matt then celebrate in the ring afterwards, each man making it clear that they want to become the X Division champion, usually united in their celebrations. They normally do something a little bit in sync. There's evidently some competition as the two men want to be the centre of attention. They'll both get their chance to win the title at Genesis 2011. It's again noted that unlike Roderick Strong, Generation Me put their medals back on after the match. They're clearly very, very proud of this World X Cup win, and this week the fallout from the World X Cup is just showing Roderick Strong with a win, Generation Me with a win. Things are looking really, really good for these three men. Cutting to the back, Austin Creed and Sonjay Dutt are watching Generation Me's celebration. Of course, they presented the trophy and the medals to them last week, so they're really happy to see them continue to build that momentum. However, Creed and Dutt are confronted by Larry Sweeney. Sweeney tells Austin Creed that he still has a contract with Sweet and Sour. He needs to stop hanging around with Sonjay Dutt, and he needs to come back to representing the group that he's signed to. Sonjay Dutt looks to fire back at Sweeney, but Creed tells him he's got this. Austin says that Sweeney might be a manipulative parasite and that might work on guys like Kazuchika Okada, but Creed doesn't remember signing anything that said who he could and couldn't speak to or where he could or couldn't stand. Creed says that it was Larry's job to further his career, but he's done nothing for him. Creed barely even had any matches in the month that he was with Sweeney, so in terms of being his agent, they're done. Austin Creed fires Larry Sweeney. He won't be getting his 20% anymore. Larry Sweeney can't believe what he's hearing, but tells Creed this isn't over. Now Sweeney's going to go away and consider his next move, but Creed making it clear he wants nothing to do with that group. The in-ring action has not been very good tonight, I have to admit that. Hopefully this main event can deliver, and we've had that good in-ring segment with Anderson, Angle and Paul Heyman, so we should still get a good rating, but the matches have been really, really poor. Maybe that will reflect in the TV rating, but they're always bad anyway, so I'm not that bothered. A decent reaction from the crowd, but subpar wrestling, and the crowd were turned off by having a match with two people who they don't have any interest in, so quite the fall from grace for ODB, who, remember, was the Knockouts champion this time last year. really somebody who have not done a great job of booking, but a 50 and a 41, it's not that bad to be fair. Jazz picks up the victory when, during the match, April Hunter debuts in TNA. When the referee is distracted by Jazz, she takes down ODB. Then Jazz can hit the Fisherman's Buster and pick up the victory. But April Hunter debuts a Headhunter gimmick, which gets a great rating. Another new face in the Knockouts division, which I think is much needed. Brooke Tessmacher and Lacey Von Erich run down, despite them themselves having struggled earlier. They want to check on ODB, but they are taken down with a double clothesline from April Hunter, who meets them at the bottom of the ramp. Hunter then rolls Brooke and then Lacey into the ring, taking Lacey back down to the canvas with a power slam before lifting Brooke Tessmacher onto her shoulders, hitting an electric chair drop. April Hunter leaves both women decisively down in the ring. She was also responsible for taking out ODB, so a dominant debut for her. Jazz then takes a microphone, introducing her soldier, the Headhunter, April Hunter. The two women then leave together. A new alliance formed, and Jazz now has somebody to do her bidding. We then return to the Beautiful People show. Angelina Love and Velvet Sky welcome the Forefathers to the ring. While all four speak about the formation of the group, Christopher Daniels does the bulk of the talking. He says that throughout the years, each of them have been linchpins of TNA Wrestling. They've been dependable, they've been reliable, but they've never been able to break out. They've never been the guy, the showcase, the star. Daniel says there's a bunch of reasons for that he could go into that are all out of their control, but he's not here to make excuses. The Forefathers are here to take control, and there's strength in numbers. As he says that, the four men put up the four fingers, presenting a united front. When Desmond Wolfe comes down to the ring, he says that he must have missed his invitation. When Daniel said he could count his true friends on the fingers of one hand, he knows that Kazarian, Storm, Rude, there's a place for another guy, and he knows that there's nobody closer to Daniels than Desmond Wolfe. Kazarian puts the four fingers up again and says that this doesn't quite work with five of them. The Forefathers then kind of laugh off Wolfe's attempt to join the group. Daniel's shaking his head, Beer Money chuckling along, and they leave. Desmond Wolfe left alone in the ring with the Beautiful People, looking pretty humiliated, and we're showing here already that the Forefathers are a very close-knit, tight group who don't want any outsiders. Daniels and Wolfe have done a lot of work together over the last 12 months, but clearly Daniels has a vision for this group, and it doesn't involve Desmond Wolfe. Nonetheless, he puts in a fantastic performance in the segment. Rude also looking good, and thankfully this angle got the crowd interested again after the knockout stuff that clearly didn't take their fancy. Mara Ranallo and Taz then introduce a recap package of the debut of TNA Evolve on MTV before discussing the events of the show between themselves. As the footage shows, Roderick Strong became the X Division champion in the first ever match on MTV before the unsigned Kevin Steen made a surprise appearance. Mara wondering what he was doing here. He knows for a fact that he isn't a TNA wrestler. In the main event, Tyler Black became the number one contender to the World Heavyweight Championship, and he'll face Kurt Angle at Genesis in 17 days' time. The commentators then promote the second episode, which will feature wrestling's greatest tag team in action, with Chris Hero versus Chris Sabin in the main event. Two halves of two incredible tag teams, and they're going to get the chance to do what they do best and hopefully put on an incredible main event for the second episode of TNA Evolve. Before we move into the main event, we see that backstage AJ Styles has approached Samoa Joe. AJ says that he knows there's a lot to take in at the minute, not least with the Forefathers running their mouths, but he just wants to tell Joe that he doesn't trust Paul Heyman, and he wants to know what Joe maybe thinks of the idea that Heyman and the New Age might be working together. Joe says that he's been in this business long enough to know that you can't trust anybody, but even by the standards of pro wrestling, Paul Heyman is a snake. AJ asks him if he thinks he could be behind the New Age, and Joe says that he doesn't know about that. Whether he is or not, it doesn't change anything. Their goal is the same. They have to work together to remove the New Age and to show them what TNA really stands for. Whether it's Paul Heyman, whether it's Jimmy Jacobs, whether it's somebody else, what matters is that TNA stands strong against the the New Age, and we go into a really good main event actually. An exceptional match that was carried by Kurt Angle apparently, but you can see Chris Hero already getting 80 ratings. He's going to be huge in this company, but the finish comes when Mr. Anderson bizarrely tries to once again walk out on Kurt Angle. Angle rolls out of the ring and asks him what he's doing. He has the chance at a World Heavyweight Championship shot, and he's just going to walk out on that and leave Kurt to get beaten by the Kings of Wrestling. This kind of gets through to Mr. Anderson, who realises that in his moment of petulance, of being annoyed at Kurt Angle and wanting to walk off, he's actually cutting his nose off to spite his face. He returns to the ring and stands on the apron. Kurt then, still sort of jaw-jacking with him, Anderson slaps him in the face. He asks if that counts as a tag. The referee says it does. Anderson comes in, but of course the argument continues between the two of them. Chris Hero then throws Mr. Anderson into Kurt Angle, the two men clashing heads and falling out to the outside of the ring. Tyler Black then rolls Mr. Anderson back into the ring, clearly severely hurt. The little distraction with the referee having his eyes on Kurt Angle and Mr. Anderson, Chris Hero is able to put on that loaded elbow, knock Mr. Anderson out and pick up the victory. So that thing that Mr. Anderson was saying a few months ago about every time Kurt's on the losing side of the match, it has something to do with him. That theory is being proved true again, as their team simply doesn't work. Mr. Anderson is the one getting pinned, but nonetheless, Kurt Angle is on the losing end of a match with members of the New Age involved. Could that be a preview of Genesis? I certainly hope we can get something like this in the rating between Tyler Black and Kurt Angle. Following the match, Tyler Black rolls Kurt Angle into the ring. The three men then circle Kurt Angle like wolves before Black tells Castagnoli to go and get the steel steps from ringside. The commentators recount what happened last week to Bobby Lashley. He's had his arm broken by the New Age and suggests that with just 2 weeks until Genesis, the New Age may well be looking to seriously injure the World Heavyweight Champion. However, as Castagnoli looks to head to the outside, wrestling's greatest tag team run down from the back. Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin take the fight to the Kings of Wrestling, with Tyler Black looking to be the difference maker. However, Haas and Benjamin have sort of got rid of Hero and Castagnoli to the outside, and then they're able to outnumber Black once they enter the ring. They don't need to do anything, however, as Kurt Angle has now returned to his feet and hits an angle slam to the number one contender, who quickly rolls to the outside with Hero and Castagnoli. Something of a reunion, and I've wanted to do something between these three since Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team came to the company. We've teased it a few times, but it looks like finally, as they stand tall to end Impact, Kurt Angle, Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, the reunion of Team Angle in TNA. Another decent segment, albeit losing heat to the storyline, but that is the end of the show. Another good rating with an 81, really happy with that. But moreover, I think the idea of having the Kings of Wrestling and Tyler Black on the outside and Team Angle on the inside of the ring, not only is that setting up future matches involving the component parts, the idea that potentially we could see the three men of the New Age and the three members of Team Angle going against each other in a TNA ring would be really great. I think the first episode of TNA Evolve got a great rating, 1.3 million viewers, so more than twice that we're getting with Impact, which shows just how important getting on those big networks is. Maybe one day we'll see Impact move to MTV, but let's go into now episode 2 of TNA Evolve. Episode 2 begins with Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team defeating Cole and O'Reilly. Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly have just been brought in for one show, and you can see there with a 25 and a 26, they are some way off being to the level required. An okay way to start the show, but not as good as last week. Haas and Benjamin then stand tall in the ring, a decisive victory over the tryout team. I was originally going to have this as Rhett Titus and Kenny King versus the Motor City Machine Guns, but with Alex Shelley's injury, plans changed. We then get a video package looking back at the debut last week of TNA Evolve. Roderick Strong became the X Division champion, Black won a number one contendership match, and Kevin Steen made a surprise appearance. We don't know what that was about, but we know that tonight's main event will see Chris Hero face Chris Sabin, two halves of the Genesis World Tag Team Championship match, and with Alex Shelley currently out injured, perhaps there's an advantage for Chris Hero tonight, who will have Claudio Castagnoli at ringside, and this package, with the two men speaking, just puts over their characters and their part of the New Age led by Jimmy Jacobs. We then get a poor match, but it is just a squash where Hamada defeats Tracy Brooks, and we're just putting over that she is a dangerous competitor and one of the most accomplished knockouts in TNA. She stands tall after the match, followed by an excellent promo from Kurt Angle, which will no doubt help the end rating, and he discusses his upcoming match with Tyler Black at Genesis 2011. We then see another appearance from Kevin Steen. He takes a seat in the balcony, and the commentators say that somebody will be sent up to speak with him after the main event. We then get a video package profiling and highlighting the great 2010 that the Motor City Machine Guns enjoyed, but Chris Sabin's first match of 2011 ends in defeat as Chris Hero wins with a Hangman's Clutch facebuster. A 68 rating isn't great, and to be fair, it's the announcing that really isn't good enough. After the match, Claudio joins Chris in the ring. The commentator's putting over that they are looking to become the World Tag Team Champions at Genesis. Focus then switches away as Jeremy Borash has joined Kevin Steen on the balcony, and he asks why he's here. He's not signed to TNA, so what's he doing in the crowd on back-to-back shows, and why is he watching New Age matches specifically? Kevin Steen says that this is nothing to do with the New Age, but he recently got fired from where he worked and he's looking for a job. To be fair, he is not giving much away, and a 74 means that that show is good enough. We're not going to have any problems. We have a minimum requirement of 71 with MTV. Despite it losing us popularity in one region, it does gain us popularity in two regions. TNA Evolved is about the in-ring action, and hopefully we can get better main events than 68 in coming weeks.